Hello, my name is Tierney, and I'm the author of I May Not Know What I'm Talking About, but I'm going to say it anyway. We're on the second item or section of the Get It Together chapter, women, chapter 2, which is entitled uh, Our Progress. How is it working for you? Now, in this particular section, I kind of get into the whole women's lib situation and how that's affected our choices and how it's affected the outcome has affected us as far as like balancing home life and career and getting into taking responsibility for your decisions and your choices. I tried before we get into the different topics I got into. Well, I tried to kind of get into how we really didn't really factor in when and I'm speaking to really more to women who choose to have a family, not necessarily women who don't, because after all, when you're by yourself, you don't have to worry about anything but yourself. So that's not really that person's problem. But for women who want to have a family, and I say that that's the part I feel like the women's live movement really did not take into consideration. It seemed like everything was based on us wanting to map our own futures out, which was a great thing and it was fine. However, when you decide that you want to get married and you want to have children, those things change because your priorities have to change. And most women, in most cases, want to be there for their children and they want to they want to maintain their homes. And so now you have this woman who's had the ability to do live, map out her life and do what she wants to do, being, put in a position of conflicting uh, interests when she now realizes that, okay, if I can't put all my time into my job, I do have responsibilities, and these are responsibilities I really want to do. Otherwise, there was really no reason to get married, and it certainly wasn't any reason to have kids. That's one of the things that that I really, really felt like that's one of our biggest issues as far as like if you want to get married and have, especially if you want to have kids, um, you're going to they have a certain priority, and so all of a sudden you have to figure out how are you going to do all of this. How are you going to um, be a mother? How are you going to be a career person? How are you going to be a wife? And and pull it off successfully. I mean, it's easy to say, well, a man can jump in, and I know a lot of women use that, but that doesn't take away from our feelings of inadequacy when we wanted to be there. That's one of the things that just pushing it off on the man is a silly concept when, I mean, true enough, a man should be part of the raising of his kids. There's no doubt about that. He helped make them. But the thing about it, that doesn't take away our inadequacies when we feel like we are not there. And there's no amount of him being there is really going to change that. That's something that you have to work out within yourself. So, I mean, true enough, like I said, if you truly value your husband's or whoever your mate's presence in your children's life, you're going to give him what he needs to be the father he should be to his children. However, like I said, it doesn't diminish your responsibilities, and it's not going to diminish your inadequacies when you feel like you're not doing what you should be doing. And that's the real reason why taking responsibility or mapping out things and understanding how you're going to do this becomes important. And that's really the primary purpose of this particular section is to kind of like say, hey, how this needed to be planned out. And it was something that was really never really focused or even thought of while we were marching and burning bras and demanding our rights and demanding to be heard. None of that part was factored in. So a lot, like I said before, when you don't have to be responsible for anybody but yourself, you can be superwoman and you can do all you want to do. But when you all of a sudden want and desire to have a family and want to be a mother and everything, or even just have a husband, you're not, when you have a relationship, nobody's a robot. Nobody turns off and on when you want them to. So the reality of that situation still is that you have to figure out how you're going to make time, just like you want them to have the same priority to make time for you. Whether it's a male or female, I always say that a relationship is about relating. It's not about just you having somebody that you can say is there, and like I said, where they can meet your needs when you need them to meet your needs. That's not a relationship. So all those things have to be factored in. So one of the things I talked about was bullying. And the reason why I talked about the oppressed becoming the oppressor, and the reason why I brought that particular subject up in this under this title was because what I've observed or seen from a lot of women is that because they're trying to balance their way of balancing their situation is really they try to put onto the man things that they know need to get to happen. And the problem with that is that's great if you have a man that understands and he's okay with that. But it's not going to be such a great ideal if it turns out that's not what he felt like he signed up for. And that goes into our choices because we need to be more um, we may need to understand that you just can't fall in love with somebody and just saying, hey, I'm happy, let's go do this, is not going to be enough if you have other things going on. And you need to be able to, quote unquote, um, be realistic about that. I mean, you may meet somebody who is very traditional, and that's what he wants, and that's what he feels like he should get. And if you find someone like that, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to want him to be more part of the domestic aspect of things, and he might be going in a completely different direction and saying, and doing everything he can to not be that, which is going to create major conflict. You're going to be doing a lot of fighting. And then that might resort for you to start using manipulation or bullying as a way of getting your point across. And that's where I meant when I said the oppressed becoming the oppressor. And like I said before, I see a lot of times where men, like sometimes either they move away from the relationship, some of them resort to affairs. They handle things in different ways, depending upon what their circumstance is, and just to not to deal with it. And these are things that we have to consider, like, okay, if I really want this happy union, you know, his feelings, how he feels about it, may play into it. Like I said before, you may get lucky to get him to see things your way, and he might be okay with it. But there are a lot of situations, and a lot of women complain about this, on how their men really is not all that interested in helping them out. And his attitude is, you're the one who wanted the career, but you also was the one who wanted to get married. So you need to figure out how you gonna work this out. And in all honesty, as cold as that sounds, there's a lot of truth to that. Because like I said, unless you meet a man who really, really was like desired to have you in his life and said, hey, I'm willing, whatever you need, then you don't really have a whole lot of leverage. Unfortunately, because women have a desire to be married and have families, it's usually us who want a more permanent relationship. So now that puts you in a position of, even if you get him to marry you, you're in a situation where you kind of gotta play ball his way, because he can always come back and say, hey, I could have been out there doing my thing and I wouldn't have had to worry about this at all. So now that's why it becomes important to understand the importance of your choices. So that's why I say to a lot of women is, you got to sit down and think about this for a minute. And if you find yourself in a position where you don't have that kind of man who wants to help you, then you're going to have to figure out, okay, how am I going to work this out? And that might mean, reviewing your career issues, deciding, if you can do it all. Or, hopefully he'll be okay with things not really being taken care of like they would have normally been. Because he might, if he's the kind of man who expects the house to be clean and things like that, you might try to pull off, I'm not going to do it because I don't have time. And he might be like, I don't want this. And so you may have that problem. So, you might get lucky if you choose to not to put in the work. He might be okay with that as long as he's getting his sex and stuff. He may not care about it. But on the other hand, he might be the kind of person who wants a clean house, who wants dinner on the table. So you're not going to be able to weasel out of it for him in his mind just because that's the way you felt like that was the way for you to solve your problems. And so that's why I said about, your career issues, like, where are you at in your career? Are you comfortable enough with not being that being a priority? Can you work from at home? Different things like that. Because these are things, again, if you choose to have kids, you also got to consider that as part of your situation as well. Who's going to be taking on the responsibilities of caretaking? Is it feasible for me to stay at home? How's the child care issue as far as like payment? Can we afford this? Those are things that you got to factor in. And so, as women, it becomes your best interest to like really think this thing through before you even worry about getting married. As a matter of fact, probably once you start your career, you should be really kind of coming up with a plan. Like, if I meet somebody or if I've already met somebody, how is this going to go down? Should I be putting money aside for future circumstances? Maybe I can invest in real estate or somebody else's venture, and that'll be a way for finance to come in, and that way at least I'll have something of my own, some form of independence financially, or I don't have to worry about if something was to happen to him or our relationship was to go south. How would I be? How would things go? Those are things you can think about. Not just worry about how much the wedding is going to cost, but more important, like, what's going to happen afterwards. Do I have the ability to help pay off the house? So that makes it a lot less on him, and then that way, if I choose to kind of slow down on my career, then it won't be such a financial burden. And then that would allow certain things. Those are things you can think about, as far as if you get married later in your life, where are you at a point where, I can really slow things down. I've had my ability to maneuver in my career. I've got a chance to be all I can be. So now that's not a priority. Those are things that you want to factor in, think about. Okay, continuing. And so again, that's something that I felt like that needed to be kind of addressed. Another aspect that I wanted to get into, on the section, was the financial circumstance. Again, what I was saying about, um, you know, um, just when you're dealing with someone who prefers to be the breadwinner versus sharing in the financial responsibilities, that what I was alluding to about putting your money aside and things like that. What I was trying to say was that if you had someone who desires to be the breadwinner versus sharing in that responsibility, that you might consider possibly, like I said before, for your sake of your own security, maybe putting a 401k plan for your money that you've earned away, so at least you know that you have a security circumstance. If something was to happen, and then allow him to pay the bills. That way, but hopefully, the person that you choose is someone that financially has the same visions as you have and possibly desires the same materialistic concepts that you have. That way, you won't feel like you are totally, maybe cheated by having to deal with somebody who may not see things the way you do. That's why it becomes important not to just be caught up in falling in love with someone. That you got to look at all of that. Um, so that's why I'm suggesting the possibility, like I said before, maybe you might have some real estate where you have money coming in that you can put away, or if you want to, do things like put money away for college for your kids or future weddings or future investments and things like that. That for a later time when things are kind of wind down, then you'll have it, and you still have that ability to be independent. Um, Again, like I said before, some of like there are some men that don't mind a woman helping, financially contributing. So in those situations, of course, you can divvy up your bills accordingly, or put it all in the same pot and put the money together and pay your bills out of that pot, however way you want to do it. But like, I'm just really talking about women who are in a situation where their husbands prefer to be the breadwinner. That's the most important concern of this particular section, is when you just find yourself where you used to be an independent, and you find yourself having to dealing with someone who, like I said, prefers to be what he considers the breadwinner or the provider. So how do you adjust to that? Um, I'm going to continue on another tape, so I will be closing out on this one and continue on the next one as far as this section goes. So thank you. Hello, this is Tia Ratney. I had on the progress section of the women's section of the book. I mean, I know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to say it anyway. Um, I wanted to say that one of the things I've been reading about is the increase of women, particularly black women, uh, choosing to own their own businesses. And to me, how this relates in a beneficial way to the progress section is, I feel like one of the things I brought up in the first chapter was us commanding our ships, and how not being able to do that anymore has hindered us or hurt us when it comes to the raising of our families, because we're now under the thumb of someone else. And so one of the things I see as a benefit by doing something like this, especially from the standpoint of women, is once that business gets situated, and you have it, being able to, uh, whether it's through the assistance of employees, or you managing yourself and you know how to manage it, you got a hand on it, that's an excellent way of being able to kind of maintain your sense of independence and still possibly maneuver a family, because you get to set your hours and your tone. I'm The one thing I guess I would have to assume is, if you were doing something that deals with a retail circumstance or service oriented circumstance, such as salon work or something like that, that you would have other people under you, who can fill in the bill when you need that kind of help. The other circumstances would probably be things where you can do it from out of your home, or make up your own hours. I know a lot of people do things like blogging, and do a lot of internet work, service work. And so things like that definitely give you the opportunity to kind of manage your time, where you would be able to, maneuver, taking the kids to wherever they need to go, and, stopping to do what you need to do. And again, but I'm not like again when I make these statements, I'm more discussing this with women who have husbands who are more traditional. If you have a husband, and I said this in my book, if you have a husband that's willing to work with you, this doesn't apply to you because it's already set up. This is for women. This discussion is really for women who happen to be married to men who may not be as agreeable as they would like them to be. And this is the person you chose. And so therefore, you either, I guess not stay together or you have a combative relationship because, until he decides, if he decides that he's okay with doing helping out. So again, I just want to make that clear that I'm not talking about women who have men who help them, regardless of whether you work for someone else or you have your own business or however you do it, or even stay at home for that matter. You still have husbands that still don't mind helping out. If you're fortunate enough to have that circumstance, then more power to you. But like I said, not every woman is in that situation, and they have to figure this out and how they're going to do things. And so that's part of the reason why that was important. But for me to say that, but I felt like that was a very encouraging situation because it gives women the opportunity to command their ships instead of them being under the thumb of someone telling them when they need to be at work, and they're just being dictated by other people. So I just thought it was a great trend. So I just thought I'd bring that up. Thanks. Goodbye.
Okay. Also, on the subject of the divvying up of finances, something else I wanted to actually include in that. If you are helping your husband with the responsibilities of maintaining the home in a financial way, you have every right to expect him to help you out domestically when it comes to managing the home. His job, his responsibility is to be a provider, and ours was designated to manage the home. Well, in today's times, unfortunately, you have a lot of situations where, because of limited opportunities, sometimes our men can't fully handle that responsibility, or it's just been mutually decided that that's how it's going to be, which is nothing wrong with that. It's absolutely wonderful. But again, if that's the case, then everybody has to get in where they fit in and work together. And so, I want to make sure I said that. Also, too, when I talked about putting your money aside and things of that nature. One of the things I wanted to make sure I also incorporated in that is, like I said, if your husband is the provider, you're in a traditional relationship, that you might consider in making the situation more accommodating for you, as far as being able to have a quality time or quality vacations and things like that. That maybe you consider being the one who is responsible for that from that end financially. That way, first of all, you guaranteed to have a date and romantic evening with your husband, and second of all, you guarantee that you and your family will have quality outings. So those are things. It's a lot of other suggestions I threw in there, but that was something I definitely wanted to make sure I incorporated, with me saying again that a relationship is a partnership, and people play their part. Oh, and also too, for women who are involved with men who are possibly high profile, or who have ability to take care of their families. You have to factor in where that man came from. If he's a traditional man, a lot of times, some, especially in the black community, a lot of men were raised by single mothers, and they may have witnessed their mother struggle coming up, and so they made a decision when they became, of an adult, that when they were able to, if they could find themselves to be able to provide, they did not want that kind of, they didn't want their children to be raised like that. And so sometimes as women, we get offended by the idea that a man, who can provide, does not want us to work. But we also have to factor in where he came from. And if he came from an environment where he didn't really get the nurturing that he felt he should got, he may have made a decision. I'm going to make sure that I can take care of my home financially so that my wife can be there for for our children. So, you also have to factor those things in too. That's why I said to be careful who you get involved with and understand their point of view. So, that's another thing I wanted to also say, because when I keep saying traditional, there are guys that they don't, because of how they were raised, have plays a big part into why they are the way they are. And so they may, like I said, they may not desire a woman who's out there working, because of that reason. And so, if you get into that mindset of I want to have my own and things of that nature, that's why I said you may have to have your own money up front, and then maybe you put it aside, and in that way, you can give him what he wants, and you have the ability to have what you want. So I just thought it was another thing to throw in there. Thank you. Bye bye.